Hello, fellow wargamers and history buffs. Today I wanted to do a comparison video looking at 1811 Albuera, the first edition, versus the second edition. So the second edition is just coming out. There's a Kickstarter and things like that, or a game found that's going on for that. I bought this particular game, well, probably 3 years or more ago, and I've played it a few times and really enjoyed it. And so we're just going to be looking at the component differences between these. I haven't had a chance yet to read the rules for the second edition. I understand that there's some things that they've added to it and some things that they've done to streamline the general play. So I'm not going to be talking about the rules necessarily, but more or less comparing the components and things like that. The one thing that is noticeable is right off the bat that the boxes are the first edition box is a little smaller. The second edition box is a little bit taller, and that's in part because the second edition box has this new mounted map. So I'm sure that took up a lot more space, and so that would explain why you've got that. Otherwise, cover art and everything else is still very nice for both of the boxes. Okay, here's one of the things that's quite different from the first edition to the second edition. So this map that I have here on top was the first edition map. It was a paper map on glossy stuff, kind of a heavier stock, but it went together. We had multiple pieces that went together that then created the map. So on the back, you had then this little thing that would show you, okay, this particular piece of the map represents this, and so altogether we had 9 pieces that made up then the map. The other thing that you can see is that the color palette is quite different. Here's this hill on the second edition map. Here it is on this first edition map, and you can see just how dark it is. When I first played this, I thought, is Albuera in a mountain pass? And this was one of the, I think, one of the main complaints that people had with the first edition. While they liked the rules and they liked a lot of other things, the map itself was not very attractive. The color palette was just way, way, way too dark for a pretty flat section of Spanish countryside. You'll see also that the hex size is a little smaller on the first edition and it's larger on the second edition. So it looks like there's a portion of the map from the first edition that got eliminated from the second edition. So it looks like they kind of trimmed around maybe the edges of the battlefield to kind of focus it in on a more narrow area. Some of the artwork is also a little different. In the first edition, you can see the houses of the village look a little bit more kind of like that sort of 3D drawn, while here in the second edition, they are more of a sort of as if you're viewing them from a satellite. So slightly different style as far as that goes, but I think the main difference is the mounted map with the second edition, much better color palette, much cleaner look, and altogether much more appealing than the first edition. Now to look at the player aids that came, the first edition came with a smaller card that had the sequence of play, combat procedures, and then the operational flow for it. Then it also included a information here with leader casualties and combat and modifiers. So this was your general combat card, and this is the particular style it was. Pretty big fonts on a lot of the stuff. Here is the second edition one. It's got a smaller font, so it's a little easier to read if we're going to be looking at these things there. Instead of it being sort of in script, it's in more of a sort of a standard Times Roman type of thing, so a little easier to read. And then the results themselves, that I think that chart looks pretty much the same as what the other one was, although, yeah, it's fairly similar, although I think it's a little smaller a little easier to read just with how the font is. So just some, sort of design changes that are different. And then with some of the new changes to the rules, perhaps there's some other things that are going on here that I'm not familiar with, maybe some things that might have changed on the charts themselves. So one thing I am particularly pleased with the second edition is that it included your order of battle charts. So it has then your setup for your counters, and then you also have a sense of who's in command of each division and things like that. The first edition did not include anything like that. It had a page, a couple of pages in the back of the scenario booklet that had the information, but then you had to basically take that and put it on your copy machine and make a color copy and try to blow it up so it was the right size for the counters and everything else. And so that's what I ended up doing. But because at least they had it included, but it was part of the booklet, and it wasn't the sort of thing you could take out of the booklet. So this was the best you could do, would be to like photocopy it and enlarge it. So very nice that they include the order of battle charts with the second edition. Now, looking at the rule book, here's the first edition one. It had, color and glossy finish and different examples and things like that in it. So that was nice. The book itself is a little smaller physically than this newer one. And so this one's got, all the rules. I think this particular one, as I said, is about 55 pages. And the first edition was 39 pages. But the print was pretty small. In this one, you can see it's very small. And then the print here is larger. So here's a sample of the print in the first edition, and then here's a sample of the print in the second. So second edition, it's a little easier on your eyes to read that. A little bit larger print. I'm happy for that. I don't mind a few extra pages if I can read it better. Now we're looking at the battle booklet. This is fairly similar. It's got the information and the scenario. This particular one only had, I think, two scenarios. It had the historical scenario and sort of a what-if scenario. The newer one looks like it's got a couple of different scenarios, some smaller scenarios, in addition to the usual historical background. And yeah, so it's got a scenario for Gerard's initial assault, a cavalry action, and then the historical, and then a what-if scenario. So it's added a couple of maybe smaller scenarios as introduction to the game system. So that's a nice thing that's there. But as far as they go, very similar between the two. Just a little bit, more material in the second edition. Now let's take a look at the different unit counters and kind of compare them. So it looks like the size of the counters is about the same. They're about 5/8 of an inch or so. Here's a leader counter, 4th of the 11th. And the problem with the old counter is that looking at it, there's so many numbers here, you can't tell, is this a leader or not? It looks very much like the unit counter for the infantry, right? And plus there's no name there. So I like the fact that they've now put this here. You've got the name of the leader there. The formation is easier to read, and the information there is still accessible. But I think this is much cleaner. The other one, we always had some challenge trying to find our leader because sometimes he just sat right on top of the other guys, and it was not obvious that it was a leader given the way that the counters were designed. Here you can see then this is a typical infantry from first edition. It looks like the jacket and the crossbars. It's got the different information there. And then here you can see the same counter now with the new design. I think, generally speaking, easier to read the formation that he's with. as well as what regiment and battalion he is. And the fact that you can see, yes, that's clearly an infantryman, and so that's a nice change. So I'm pleased with that update. Now, looking at the informational counters, it looks like these have got an improvement too. The text has gotten a little smaller, a little easier to read. The counters have a lot more contrast. This is what they looked like before. They were pretty busy. These ones here now look like they've got some information on them, showing you that your melee is halved because you're spent. I'm not sure what some of these other. I think the rules have changed slightly on some of these other things, but they've got some information here right there, letting you know, hey, you've got this on you. You're a -1. And then something else is modified. So that's kind of nice, as opposed to the older markers that just told you what it was, and then you had to try to remember from the rules what your status was. All right, here we're looking at the leader cards, and you can see that they are very similar, same size. And here then it's got the image. This is then going to match the image that's on the counter. It's got the belt color, so you can find that particular brigade out there on the field, and then it's going to tell you some of the particulars. So this doesn't look much different, but I do like that it's still maintains similar format to what it had before, but just because they've changed then the counter artwork, you now have this to kind of match it. All right, something that is new with the second edition is these sort of special event cards. These look like ones that each player is going to have, draw one or two randomly, and then you're going to keep this in your quiver of sorts for when you need to use it. So maybe there is a particular situation where you need to, get a reroll or pass a check or something like that. Then you would use one of these cards then in that situation. It looks like both players will probably have an assortment of cards that they can then use in some critical part of the battle to maybe reverse their fortune or to bail them out if they got a bad die roll or something like that. So this is a new feature, and this looks like it's going to be something fun to add to the mix. Now, another new item they have is this chart here that would kind of go off map. That's going to keep track of the turns, keep track of each army's cohesion level, fatigue level, command status, etc., routed units, and then cards that have been played. This particular, a lot of this material here was included on a portion of the map originally. So it's kind of nice then that they'll have it kind of off to the side, so you can then set it up, and it's not on the map itself. It takes up a little bit more space than the one that was originally on the map, but I think it will altogether. It's a little bit cleaner, and it's all in one spot, and it's easy to see. So in conclusion, I played the first edition of the game. We really liked the rules. They worked out well for solitaire, and they also worked out well in a one-on-one game that I played with my friend. We had a really good time. It had a great narrative quality to it. And if you're used to playing La Bataille and some other Napoleonic ones, there's not anything that's in here that's going to be surprising you. The game designer used a lot of concepts from La Bataille and other Napoleonic games, but also pulled in some elements from some American Civil War games and some others that have been published to make a really unique kind of mix of things. We really enjoyed some of the command control friction, made for a fun game. The second edition looks like it's going to be components are fantastic. Looks like he's made a big improvement from that. The first edition games were ones from a company called Game Crafter, and you basically had to order the game, and the game crafter company then made one single game. They printed it out and they shipped it to you usually within about 3 weeks. And so as a result of them making one game at a time, printing one game at a time, it was very expensive. Albuera, I think, cost me 120 some odd dollars plus $20 for shipping. I'm not sad that I bought that because it was a fun game. It's a fun game. This one, because Frederick is going to be doing it on a more mass scale, is going to be much less expensive. It's going to be a better deal for everybody. I think he's looking at somewhere between $60 and $80 for this second edition copy, and he's got the Kickstarter and the GameFound thing going on right now, so you might be able to get it at even better a deal depending on when you're watching this video. So that's it. I will try to read through the new updated rules and try to do a playthrough so that way then I can educate you people a little bit more on this. But yeah, a fun system. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the second edition. If you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them in the section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you want to materially support the channel, you can do so at buymeacoffee.com. Until our next episode, everybody, be well.